Awesome. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Grow Your Practice podcast. I'm here with Paul, who is one of the directors of Rate My Clinic. How are you going today, Paul?
I'm very well, thanks, Lachlan, and yourself.
I am good. Thank you very much for asking. Now, you don't mind if I ask a couple of icebreaker questions just to get us started?
I do not at all.
Three of them. So I'll start you off with number one. Who inspires you?
Who inspires me? This is always a tough question, I think. Multiple people inspire me. I think that, starting with my parents, my wife, siblings, but I think the best answer, is that anyone who is at the apex of what they do.
Yeah.
So, recent example, random example is watching a university quiz challenge. That was quite inspiring. The knowledge that these people had was staggering. So I get inspired by anyone who really knows what they're doing and is an expert in their field.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. So can't agree more. And then what do you do for fun? What are you most passionate about?
Look, I play a bit of sport. So
Yep.
I play competitive tennis. I also play table tennis. And I love playing chess. I play chess every day for at least 10 minutes a day.
So you're a strategic thinker. I'm getting it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a lot of parallels for sure that you can bring from chess into life in general, but certainly into business. But yeah, I love the strategic nature of it, and also it's quite an adrenaline rush when you play quick games, and I play a lot of quick games where you got a couple of minutes aside. So yeah, actually it's pretty good for adrenaline.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. And then also, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Elizabeth Grove in South Australia. It was a good place to grow up. It's got a bit of a reputation as being a bit of a tough place. But I always joke with people that I grew up in the Mediterranean part of Elizabeth. It was one of the better neighbourhoods, Elizabeth Grove. But that was all a relative term. But I loved my childhood, and I have very fond memories of it.
Awesome. Okay, well that's all I've got for you. I'm over here in Unley in Adelaide as well. So, where I've grown up. Now, I'd love to get sort of started with the whole, what inspired you to start Rate My Clinic? Where was the real inspiration? Because as I know, it's fairly new. Is it the last 8 months that you guys have popped up?
Yeah, that's right. And look, the inspiration was that around 7 years ago, I joined my wife in running the practice that she established 20 years ago. And one of the things that I did was I went on the hunt for data. I love data. I'm used to getting lots of data in my time in business over the years. So I went looking for what was available, and I couldn't find much. In fact, I couldn't really find anything that I considered to be useful data on various industry benchmarks. There have been a couple of reports over the time. There was one that was done by the Industry Association about 7 years ago, but I found that didn't actually provide a lot of useful information. So there was a challenge there, which is that I couldn't find relevant data.
Yeah.
It was also that I'm very used to using surveys as a powerful tool, asking lots of questions in a structured way to provide really, really useful information. And it became apparent that wasn't done on a regular basis. And so look, it came about through conversations with a few people and a lot of thinking. But I kind of eventually got to this position of, well, if I'm not happy with what's out there with regards to data, how about I try to create some? And then that became part of an overall methodology to say, well, what to try to figure out what good looks like. If you're running a clinic, any business, but in this case, in our case, a physio clinic, and Rate My Clinic is specifically for the allied health industry.
Mm-hmm.
What does good look like, and how do you know what good is? And so many people out there are running it by themselves.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it's useful. And my wife eventually agreed. I started to think, I'm interested in her business, and started to contribute a bit. And at that eventually then, as I said, morphed into me becoming her business partner. Once I convinced her that she could let go of those tightly held reins, which I understand, it's her baby, and she's done an amazing job in creating what she's created.
Yeah.
But what she realized, and both of us thought, was that our sets of, our unique experiences combined could be quite powerful.
Yeah.
And so that's certainly been the case for us. As I said, for a lot of other people, though, a lot of clinic owners are solo, and so some of them will have mentors and the like, but where do they go to get good information and guidance and an example of what good looks like? So that's what I wanted to create with Rate My Clinic.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, interesting. And with that sort of data collection that you've obviously collected, where are you finding sort of that practice owners are having the most challenge within their businesses?
Okay. I think there's a few areas. So I mentioned that surveying wasn't common. What I can say in all the assessments we've done today, so we have data now on over 40 clinics nationally.
Yep.
There's only one that comes to mind that's ever surveyed their clients en masse previously. So many of them do it along the way. And as part of onboarding a client, for example, the various practice management software tools that are used by clinics, you can do a net promoter score measurement when someone's come to see you. You then send them a link and, hey, what did you think? And all that. That's great, and that has its place and that's useful. Problem with that is it's point in time. It's not a true reflection of what the clinic's net promoter score necessarily is, because of the timing of when it's sent out and the fact that it's done on an individual basis. So you don't get a snapshot at a point in time. So I think that's one thing. So getting used to that idea and seeing the data that comes out of that has amazed everyone so far that we've assessed, because they haven't done it. They don't realize what comes from it. So there's two key elements. One is the quantitative side of it, so understanding your net promoter score and other metrics. But net promoter score, for anyone that doesn't know, is the global standard for client satisfaction. So understanding that, and as I said, a few other data points, but the nuggets are really the qualitative information that you get. So you ask some of the right questions, and for example, what is it that we can do to improve how we look after you? Some of the information we get out of that is amazing, and it forms the basis of a plan for them. So it's all about collecting the right kind of information so that you can use it to do to do a better job of what you do. But I think there's a number of things on the financial side that a lot of clinic owners, and obviously it's a bell curve. So some of them, are basically accountants. They know their numbers that well. They could probably be accountants. Some of the people I've spoken to know tax law quite well, et cetera, but they're very much at the very small part of the bell curve. Most clinic owners know their numbers to some degree, but don't know a number of things that we think it's important to know. So that's one thing that's come out of it. Well, that's the second thing, I think, is understanding their financial metrics in a more detailed way. The team, we survey their team as well. That's a little bit more common, that people will have done some form of team surveying in the past, but again, it's sort of sporadic and it doesn't follow a structured path, and it's not often done with a structured timeline in mind, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
And it's a good example of how you can, one of the industry challenges that we have is finding staff. So losing someone, particularly in this environment, has a much greater impact than when there's lots of people looking for work, of course. So if you've got data along the way that helps you potentially stop someone from leaving you, it can become incredibly powerful. So look, there's a few examples, I think,
for sure,
of what they have gained and what surprised them perhaps as part of the process.
What are some of the questions that you're asking those staff members? Just a couple off the top of your head.
So we asked the standard Net Promoter question, which is how likely would you be to recommend our workplace to family or to colleagues. So that provides the standard Net Promoter benchmark. But there's, it's how well do you think we communicate? What do you believe our strengths are? What do we need to do to improve? One of the other ones that we ask, which is interesting and that we've established a benchmark now for, is how well rewarded they believe they are. So, we often have seen information that for other clinics that they're losing staff to aged care as one example, because they can earn $20,000 more or $40,000 more, and some examples like that. What the data actually tells us so far is that on the whole, physios believe they are slightly better rewarded than their peers. That's what the data tells us. And this is a good example. I think all of us see things on social media or media in general from time to time, and then sort of take that as, well, that's the case, right? But if you don't have the data to back it up, it's an opinion, or it's hearsay, or it's so that's one example where we've done enough now to establish a benchmark. So we have in the region of 300 to 400 physio responses to that question, which is enough to statistically say, that's not the biggest problem generally, right? Yeah. So on the whole, they are better rewarded. So that's another example. So it's just, it's general open-ended questions that are asked in a way to get the best feedback possible.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, interesting. And then where are you finding sort of practices going wrong in trying to fix some of their issues within their practice?
Look, there's a few areas, of course, but I think that probably the number one is not having a plan.
Yeah.
And and it's running, it's the old management by crisis sort of stuff. It's whatever's in front of me right now, right? I need to do that, or, okay, I understand this is an issue, I'll fix that. So having a structured plan. And I think one of the reasons that it isn't common to do that is because in the past, at least, plans have been complex, and they've been put in the too hard basket by a lot of practice owners, because many practice owners, of course, are busy treating people as well as trying to run their practice. So I think the key there is to have a simple plan. So we've created our own template for that, but it doesn't matter what you use so much. It's more that you have a simple, useful plan. So we advocate a 1 to 2 page business plan, and being clear on what you're trying to achieve, and then having some level of rigor around how you review that, and using someone to help. So have a mentor, have a business consultant, someone that can help guide you in what you're trying to do. Yeah, so sure. I reckon that's probably the number one thing is, not having a plan.
Yeah, for sure. Just trying to get that outsider perspective on everything. What are the new projects come out with Rate My Clinic? What's new and exciting? What are you most excited about?
Oh, look, I think we're still in the very early phases of what we're trying to do. So I think everything is the answer. right now, what we're wanting to do is to increase the assessments that we're doing in the physio space.
Yeah.
But very soon we'll be expanding that across allied health into at least 8 or 9 other allied health areas. So, but there's lots to come. I think we will be doing some training. I've been passionate about training for many years. I've presented workshops for over 20 years. I love doing it. You know, it gives me a lot of pleasure, and I think there's a lot of need for the right kind of training.
Yeah.
So we'll be doing more of that. But from an industry perspective, we're really keen to push forward in really establishing numbers that are useful for the whole industry.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think, you know, physios are used to having a lot of data points. When you assess a patient, you've got a lot of data points to draw from. In running a physio business, though, I don't think that's been there. I think that's been a real issue, as I mentioned at the start. So I'm quite passionate about driving that data collection, and it being useful for not just our clients, but for the industry in general.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what you find obviously with a lot of these practice owners. They don't realize that they're actually business owners now. They're not so much, practitioners anymore. They're just, now they've really got to dig deep into those numbers and understand them and really figure that
absolutely. Out. And just while you mention that, something that we did recently, which we're going to do, you know, this is relevant to the question you just asked. We're going to do more of this. Is we started to delve into a few different areas. So, for example, what's the difference? You know, what makes a highly profitable clinic versus one that's low profit or no profit? And we've assessed a number, by the way, that are not profitable, particularly. And I'll stress this point now. When I've seen industry benchmarks in the past, and you know, there's my air quotes, they haven't normalized for a few. So it's not been normalized for anything that I've seen, at least. And by normalized, I mean that if you just take a declared profit from a clinic, it doesn't actually give you the true picture. You have to look at proper total owner return. And what we do is do it as passive owner return to get a true reflection of what the profit is. And the reason I say that is that you take time to run the business. So in some cases, that's 5 hours a week. In other cases, that's 30 hours a week. But you've got to account for that. So you have to be paid an appropriate wage for that time. Yeah. What is then left is your passive profit. Now, when that's properly factored in, then it's surprising how many clinics make little or no profit. In fact, a number of them are minus. So what we did, sorry, to go back to this point, was that we then said, okay, well, what's the difference, right? What are the key areas? And tested a few different theories. One of the things that came out of that, and you mentioned about the fact that, you know, that you've got to take time to run your business, but you've got to treat clients. And one of the things that came out of that is that clinic owners that didn't treat clients or didn't spend too much time treating clients were the ones that had the most profitable clinics. Really? So now that's a journey for those that have no staff or only a few staff members. It takes a while, obviously, to get to that point. But that's the path you need to get on if you want to make sure that you are on the path to having a really profitable clinic. So it's really profitable when you're a solo operator, depending on your circumstances. Yeah. And then what happens is that it declines until such time as you can get through that hump, and then you go up, and then you get to the territory that most clinic owners would be aspiring to.
Okay, interesting. How many staff members are you finding that tipping point
Yeah, that's a good question. And so there's not a clear number on that yet, but based on the assessments we've done, I'd say that it's when you start to get 7 or 8 employees plus.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I reckon that's probably around the tipping point. It can be done with fewer, and I can think of a few examples off the top of my head, but typically the more profitable clinics are greater than that, and tend to be in the double digits.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. And then lastly, is there anything that you wish I had asked you?
Well, look, I'm a narcissist, Lachlan. So any more questions about myself? Sure. No, let me think. No, okay, yeah. It would be useful, perhaps, if I can, to briefly explain the process of the assessment. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm more than interested.
Because that's a common question. So the brief version is, what we do is we meet with the clinic owner to explain the process and find out more about them, as the precursor to them doing an owner survey, which provides a lot of information that we need. From there, we prepare surveys to be sent to their clients and a survey to be sent to their team, with clear instructions and guidance on how best to do that, what format to use, that sort of stuff. They then send those out. We then wait for the responses, and we get, and it varies obviously based on the size of the clinic, but somewhere between 70 to 250 client responses we've got to go through, and however many staff they have. So we go through all of those individually, we summarize those results, and then prepare a very detailed report. So they get a 25 to 35 page report with lots of pretty graphs, but importantly, a lot of clear recommendations in each of the areas. So we assess their strategy, their finance, their clients, their team, and we provide a rating for each of those areas, which then combines to give them an overall rating. And then there's a lot of different data points that, underneath each of those, but their net promoter score I mentioned before is a big one. And just on that too, the lack of industry benchmarking, if you went searching for it, you could find that the global healthcare net promoter score benchmark, according to SurveyMonkey, for example, is 40. Now that's great, and if you did your own version of net promoter score and found out that you've got 60 in your clinic, well, you might think, wow, that's fantastic. But the reality is it's not, because global healthcare includes hospitals in Bangladesh, for example, that don't really have any relevance to an Australian physio practice. So the actual number for an Australian physio practice is 77, as one example. So these are the things that we do. We provide what the actual industry benchmark is, and obviously what their score is, and give them the comparison. But then we give them recommendations on how they can go about improving that. And so then once that detailed report is prepared, we then spend an hour going through that with them. And it's done in a format that they can easily share with their team if they wish, which is generally one of our key recommendations, because that's important. And then they get all the raw data as well sent to them. So they've got a lot to go through, a lot of really good information. So yeah, I think that's just important to just explain what's involved in an assessment. But we also have developed a mini free assessment. So on our website, a clinic owner can go there, enter in a few key data points, and just see the range of where they fit. We don't give them exact numbers, of course, but we give them a range so they can see how well they're doing in certain areas. So I think that's useful to know.
Yeah, for sure. I was just about to ask you, where can clinic owners get started?
Yeah, great. I mean, so I think that's a good starting point, is to just do that and see roughly where you fit. And then there's an opportunity. Anyone that does that, I'm always happy to just have a call with them, and explain it a little bit further and just give them more of an idea of what's involved. You know, it's one of those things, Lachlan, some people will go, yeah, I get it. Like, that's fantastic. I want to do it. Others will go, I don't need anyone else telling me this, telling me that. And that's fine. But we're there for those curious minds that think, oh, I'd love to know more about my business. And please, show me some information that I can use to improve it. Well, if that's you, then we can help.
Awesome. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I really appreciate that, your time, and I'm sure there's a lot of golden nuggets that I'll be willing to share with everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, Lachlan. Awesome. I appreciate it.
Cheers.